guys, and welcome to Odds on Premier League Matchday 12 midweek games with Tom Rennie. Hello, Tom.
Match week 12 already? Is that where we are? I feel like we just started.
Almost.
Crazy.
We are not even in Halloween, and the season almost is halfway through, and we enjoyed a great Liverpool-Man City with Liverpool winning 2-0, as some of our viewers suggested. So let's try to grab some good tips from Tom. Remember, guys, to leave your comments for this new match day, because we have Man United Tottenham, for instance. And of course, press the like and subscribe. And Tom, let's start with the games we have on Tuesday. We have Brighton Forest. Brighton losing again 2-0 against Brentford. I say again because they also lost to Tottenham. No goals in the last two games. And this is weird because we were told and we knew that the 𝐬𝐵 was an attacking manager, but now it's time for Brighton to bounce back and beat Forest, the worst team in the league so far.
Yeah, I mean, with Brighton, what's interesting is that before the game at the weekend, we suggested here that De Zerbi was having an influence. It looked like a team that had a new manager and they were playing slightly differently, and you could see they were getting new messages. And then weirdly, the Brentford game was basically a classic Graham Potter loss. They had all the ball, like 70% of it. They dominated the game in terms of the way it went and lost to a couple of great goals from Ivan Toney. It was very much a Graham Potter loss. So right now, I have no idea with Brighton. I really don't. I think that, again, I'd look at them in this game dominating possession. I would look at them again looking at 70-75 possession. It's whether they have someone who can take a chance. And that's always the story with Brighton. There is no replacement for Danny Welbeck if he's unavailable or he's off form. There is no secondary striker. They let Neal Maupay go. Leandro Trossard has to score a wonder goal every week or they don't score in games. You know, on and on it goes. I think they'll play well, Brighton. I'd certainly be looking at possession stats for them, but at 1.3, 1.4 to win, you're going to have to combine it with something in there. And I wouldn't be that confident in any other metric for Brighton at this moment in time, bar possession. For Nottingham Forest, you know, another loss against Wolverhampton Wanderers on Saturday. Another loss where they missed a penalty. Another loss where they just sort of don't really have an identity. And the more you look at the squad, the more you look at the players, it's a championship squad. They brought in a lot of players, but who really of quality is starring, is shining, is impressing. And, you know, Brennan Johnson was very heavily involved in the game last weekend, a star of last season, but I'm not sure how much of a Premier League player he is. Where is Jesse Lingard? 𝐿𝐭𝐿 𝐿𝐿 playing in midfield. All sorts of problems for Nottingham Forest at this moment in time. So in this particular game, I'd be looking at low scoring. I'd be going the under 1.5 market. I'd be looking at 0-0. I'd be looking at 1-0 to Brighton. I don't see Nottingham Forest scoring in this game. I think Brighton are more than likely to boss the ball, take the one chance when it comes, shut it down, and get De Zerbi that first home win.
All right, low scoring game for the first one, Brighton, Nottingham Forest, and perhaps if we go, for instance, under 2 goals, odds are massive. Tom, I'm checking it out, 3.3. This is massive, even if you are more cautious and you go for under 2.5, you should have around 2.15. So good odds for your first tip. Maybe we don't see also many goals on the other game we have on Tuesday. Crystal Palace Wolves. Wolves getting a very important victory, 1-0 against Forest. But as we know, they don't score a lot, only 4 goals scored this season. And against Palace, we saw Palace also with a 0-0 against Leicester City. So, as I said, Tom, I don't expect a lot of entertainment in Selhurst Park.
This screams 2 things, this game. Number one, the under. Under 2.5 is going to be there for you, but I'd be looking at under 1.5. I think this screams goalless draw. It screams 0-0. Just the draw itself is around 3.2, 3.4. So go for the draw in this game. Look at recent form. Crystal Palace, 1 win in their last 5, 3 draws in that time. The draw against Leicester at the weekend was incredibly drab. Should have drawn against Chelsea, but for that late Conor Gallagher goal. Did draw at Newcastle. Did draw at home against Brentford. They're solid, but uninspiring. They work hard, but don't outwork the opponent. They create chances, but not great chances. And when they take chances, usually it's a really, really good goal. So in general, Crystal Palace might be the dullest team of the teams who will definitely stay in the Premier League. I don't see this being a memorable season for Palace in any regard, this campaign. For Wolverhampton Wanderers, it's tough watching them because they are a team in desperate need of identity. And I feel sorry for Diego Costa, who missed a couple of sitters at the weekend. But he also looks knackered. Like when he missed that chance in like the 40th minute, he was so out of puff and he was so sweaty that he couldn't get himself back on side. And he missed the chance because he was breathing so heavily and he missed it. So they have to keep playing Diego Costa. They have to try and play him into fitness and play him into form. No 𝐜𝐿𝐽𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐜, no Jimenez, nobody else. Adama Traore looks chaotic and awful again. Beats 5 players and he's cross or he's shot diabolical. Got to get better from Adama Traore. Always baffled me that he couldn't make it work with Bruno Lage, who couldn't make him a better player. Never quite understood that. And they're winning games currently through shonky penalties and bits of fortune. So I don't see Wolves scoring a goal from open play. Of course, a penalty is something that changes all these predictions if Palace give away a dodgy handball like Nottingham Forest did. But I think you're looking at under here, under 1.5, similar to the first game. I'd go low on shots as well, under 10 per team in this game. And I would expect it to be double chance, Palace or draw. But go low scoring, and the draw, it screams it to me.
Okay, under 2.5 goals, we have 1.7, draw 3.46. A dull Tuesday, you expect better to do something else, perhaps good movie on TV, something like this, or on Netflix. On Wednesday, let's try to find more entertainment. Bournemouth, Southampton, both teams in the south of England. Also, the bookies expect here a draw because last 6 games for Bournemouth, 2 victories, 4 draws, and Southampton, now they are under pressure, although they stopped the bleeding against West Ham at least.
They did. I mean, let's start with Bournemouth. Another really impressive performance from them at the weekend, I thought, against Fulham. Led for a while. Dominic Solanke, with every passing week, is proving his critics, i.e. me, wrong. Like, he looks like a Premier League player. He looks like a totally different player from the one we had 2 years ago. That's scoring 30-plus goals in the Championship for you. He's not the player we remember. I still have massive concerns about Bournemouth in terms of the quality of their squad. I still think they're more than likely to get relegated this season. But at the moment, playing 4-4-2, doing the basics right, they are upsetting teams. They are taking chances. There is a belief in Bournemouth under Gary O'Neill that simply wasn't there a few weeks ago. In the end, the lack of depth and lack of quality, I think, will cost them. But in games like this, if they are to stay up, they simply have to win because they and Southampton will be both in the bottom 5 this season. For Southampton, I mean, they got the draw against West Ham at the weekend, but who knows how? I mean, I watched that game on Sunday. West Ham had 25 shots on goal, great chance after great chance. The second half, I'm not sure Southampton touched the ball, and yet they clung on for a draw. Plus, the goal they scored was a foul throw, and there was an assist by the referee blocking off a West Ham player who would have got it. So, bit of luck in the goal they scored as well, though they had better chances in that first half that they probably should have converted. So a lot of doubt about Southampton. A lot of talk that if they were to lose at the weekend just gone, the manager will be fired. A lot of talk if they don't get a result against Bournemouth, Ralph Hasenhuttl will be fired. So it's a real interesting one, this. I think that I don't see Southampton scoring many goals. 9 goals scored this season is evidence of that. 1 point in their last 5, 6 defeats. I think they will go there and try and hold Bournemouth out. And we hear that Bella Kotchap went off against West Ham at the weekend. Their best centre-half may well be injured. So I think it's going to be difficult to keep Bournemouth out. For Bournemouth, the one thing they have done this season quite well is create chances. They've not scored as many goals as maybe they should, but you take away the 9 goals they conceded against Liverpool, and it's only 13 for the season. So on average, their defence is actually quite good if you take away that anomaly. So I don't see Southampton scoring. I do see Bournemouth scoring. I think they will win a low-scoring game, and look out for Dominic Solanke being that goal scorer in a 1-0 win.
All right, Bournemouth to win 2.8. If you go for the Asian handicap, for instance, in case there is a draw, can be an option. Around 2.0 should be. And another low scoring game for you. These have odds 1.85 if you go for under 2.5 goals. Is this a derby? They are both in the south. There is rivalry?
Not really. Southampton's big rival are Portsmouth. They're South Coast, but it's a long drive. You're quite a long way away between these two. So it's not really, no.
Okay. Close. Brentford and Chelsea, of course, really, really close. No rivalry because Chelsea, they are made for winning titles, and Brentford, they just was promoted to the Premier League a couple of seasons ago, but they are doing great, especially when they are playing at home, as they show us against Brighton, with Tony scoring both goals, 8 so far. Great tally when we are only in October. And Chelsea, Tom, another victory, another clean sheet. The depth of the squad is great, with Mason Mount now scoring a brace, and Kepa also doing great saves.
Yeah, absolutely. Really surprised to see Kepa coming back in and playing as well as he has done. But he knew the previous manager did not rate him. So, maybe that's to be expected. This one does. I mean, look, let's talk briefly about Brentford. Another good win for them at home against Brighton on Friday. They are a team who are going to stay in the Premier League on the back of their home form and home victories. 3 wins this season, all at home against good teams too. Man United, Leeds United, and now Brighton. And Ivan Toney, they've got someone who should go to the World Cup with England. They've got someone who takes a penalty like nobody else in world football. They have someone who can score the type of goal he scored that first one. Not many will actually execute, that 𝐿𝐭𝐤𝐴 style goal. It was terrific. So offensively, Brentford looked quite good. And I was actually really impressed by how strong they were at the back at the game against Brighton as well, considering the horror story that was the game against Newcastle previously. Still a few players out. No Janssen, no 𝐜𝐵𝐺𝐴𝐺. 𝐜𝐵𝐺𝐴𝐺, such a massive miss for them in midfield for Brentford. But I do think in this game they will score. Ivan Toney just to score is around 4-1. So combine any scoreline here with Ivan Toney to score, and there's a good chance you'll make some money here. And look at the most recent games for Chelsea. How they beat Aston Villa, I don't know. Funny old world football sometimes. Villa had all the play, all the chances. They took one chance after Tyrone Mings gifted one to Mason Mount. They took a second chance when Mount popped that free kick in. Apart from that, Chelsea were very, very poor. They created very, very little in that game. Thrashed a very poor Wolves team, but shouldn't have beaten Crystal Palace. Laboured to that victory over West Ham in Thomas Tuchel's last game in charge. So you can still get at Chelsea despite the improvements made under this manager. I'd be looking at this particular game being quite wild, actually. I see lots of shots at both ends. I'd be looking at over 10 shots per team. I think Brentford will play and get several corners in this game. So I'd look for the over plus 5 corners market for Brentford. Toney scores 5 corners, 10 shots. Both teams score, but Chelsea win. But double chance it if you want with a draw as well, because at 4-1, a draw between these two teams, and you say it's not a rivalry, it is for Brentford. Might not be for Chelsea, but it is for Brentford. And as I always say to you, it's harder for London teams to win the league because they have derby after derby after derby. It's another one for Chelsea here against very near rivals. So I think it'll be tough. But I would just shade for Chelsea in both teams to score game.
All right, both teams to score 1.87, Chelsea to win 1.74. I like the 𝐿𝐭𝐤𝐴 style goal. It was, actually. What a player. 𝐿𝐭𝐤𝐴. Next game, Anfield, Liverpool, West Ham, Liverpool. I really enjoyed, especially the second half was thrilling, beating Man City. I didn't expect that, especially keeping a clean sheet. And with that goal disallowed, Guardiola very nervous. Also, Klopp, great show. I have to say that it was just after El Clásico, and the pace and the rhythm between Liverpool and Man City was way higher than in El Clásico. But now also they have to beat West Ham if they want to get closer to the Champions League spots. You just mentioned that West Ham, they deserve to beat Southampton, and they haven't lost in the last 8 in all competitions. Only to Everton, actually. One
loss in 8, no defeats in 5 in all competitions, but still a very good record. They turned that poor start to the season around, but the trouble is with West Ham, they're not winning games they should, and they're losing games they should draw. So at the moment, that's why they're under where I would expect them to be at this moment in time. I think they're a top 8, top 7 squad, currently languishing about 11th, but I think they will get there as the season goes on. Start with Liverpool. I think that was their best performance of the season. I don't think there's a great deal of controversy in that opinion. I think Virgil van Dijk put in his best performance for a long time. It made a big difference. I thought Andrew Robertson being in at left back, where he hasn't played a great deal this season. Joe Gomez playing as well. Just defending at full back as opposed to trying to get forward made a big difference, made them more solid, harder to get through for Manchester City. I thought that made a big difference in that game. One wonders how difficult the turnaround will be, considering the squad depth is not great. The midfield looks a bit short of players, and that defence put in a heck of an effort to beat Man City on Sunday. And this game is Wednesday night, not Thursday, as maybe both of these teams would have wanted it to be, considering they played on Wednesday. But look, I still think Liverpool are going to this massive favourites. They're 1.4 to win for a reason. They barely lose home games, and West Ham have only won once there since 1963. So it's not exactly going to be West Ham going to this game as favourites. And I think Liverpool will try and come out the blocks fast and firing. I think if they fail to score in the first 10 minutes, this game will be level at half time. And as the game wears on, Mo Salah will take some shonky chance in the final 15 minutes and they'll win the game by 1-0. As for West Ham, they have turned things around from that awful run at the start of the season. You can see there's some lovely link-up play between Paqueta and 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐻. We saw it again against Southampton, where 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐻 had about 8 shots at goal. Unfortunately, he missed the target with every single one of them, though a lot of them were decent efforts. If he'd have hit the target, he would have scored because he had the beating of the goalkeeper, he had the beating of the Southampton defence, but his range it wasn't all over the place. They were all near misses. That's the trouble. But a near miss does not a goal make. I don't think there'll be great change at West Ham. The question for them is defence. Zuma's ill. Dawson's injured. Ogbonna's injured. Aguirre's injured. That's all 4 central defenders. So they went into the Southampton game with Ben Johnson, Tito Kehrer, and Aaron Cresswell, a back 3. They're all fullbacks. And I think the goal came from a little bit of confusion and chaos at West Ham because they don't want to play 5 at the back. They do it because they keep getting central defensive injuries. If they go into this game with Dawson and Zouma, I think they've got a great chance. If they go into it with Kehrer and Zouma as a pair, I think they've got a great chance. If they go into it with Cresswell and Ben Johnson at centre-half, we might as well write it off the moment the teams are announced. So there is a chance for West Ham. It's not that encouraging at 7-1 for a gambler because I don't think that's particularly good odds to go and win at Anfield. If you did want to go for a West Ham win, well, you'd be very brave to do so, but you'd be doing it with both teams to score. So that would be 2-1 to West Ham, 3-1 to West Ham, breakaway goals as the game went on. These two teams have had some terrific games at Anfield in recent years. Yeah. Liverpool have won the majority of them, but some of the games have been fantastic. So I'd be looking at here, draw at halftime, level at halftime. I'm assuming at least Zouma will be fit, but as the game goes on, Liverpool go on to win it as the game draws towards its conclusion. Look at 0-0 until the 80th minute. Liverpool win it with goals from the 80th minute onwards.
Draw at halftime is 2.8. If you go for both teams to score, it's around 1.75. If we check the head-to-head between these two teams in the last 5 years, well, last season, West Ham won at home, but it's the only victory. 7 wins for Liverpool, 1 draw, and 1 victory for West Ham in the last 5 years. Between these two teams, at Anfield was only a 1-0 victory for Liverpool the last season. Man City, by the way, they are not playing, unfortunately, in the middle of the week. They should have played Arsenal, and that was going to be a hell of a game, but Arsenal is playing in the Europa League. So, unfortunately, we are not going to see Man City in the middle of the week, but we are going to see Newcastle, Everton, for instance, with Newcastle holding a draw against Man United. You saw it before the game, Tom, that they were going to put a fight against Man United, and at the end they got a draw. And when they are playing at home, they are even stronger. No defeats yet this season. The last game was a 5-1 to Brentford, whereas for Everton, always close defeats when they lose, but they lost 2-0 at White Hart Lane.
Got to say, I was gutted about that Man United game. I had 1-0 Man United, low-scoring game, and that Rashford header at the end. I thought, I've won it. I've done it. It's in. It's perfect. Exactly what I thought. and then he missed that header. That was very frustrating for me, but such is life. For Newcastle, it was another good performance, another solid performance from them. They are a good team. Eddie Howe is a good manager, and they are going to finish minimum in the top 8 this season. I thought it was a very adult performance at Old Trafford, and Joe Linton, I mean, he's got to score, right? He's got to score with those headers, hits the bar in the post. He would have relived that in his brain for a couple of days, I'm sure, having failed to score those brilliant chances. But they're a team on the up, Newcastle. Bruno Guimaraes in midfield looks outstanding, probably the outstanding player in the season, bar Erling Haaland in the Premier League. Miggy Almiron's got a couple of goals against Fulham, looks a bit more like the player they thought they were getting from Atlanta. Callum Wilson makes a massive difference up front. And defensively, bringing Dan Burn back in at fullback with Cher, Botman and Trippier, very solid back line. So in this game, I just don't see a scenario Everton score against Newcastle's back line. I think Newcastle's back line is strong. I think their midfield will dominate the game. And I think Newcastle will score goals against Everton, who do whatever they can to hang in games. They're a dire watch, Everton. They've done it to get points, and I admire them for it. But speaking as a neutral, they're maybe the last team I'd want to watch in the Premier League this season. And to be worse than Wolverhampton Wanderers, you really have done well, or badly, as the case may be. So I think Newcastle will score in this game. They're 1.62 favourites for a reason. I would always double up Newcastle right now with Callum Wilson scoring, who I think is a brilliant player. Maybe if he is fit, he goes to the World Cup as second striker in front of Tammy Abraham and Ivan Toney. If he is fit, is the massive caveat there, so often injured. Still no Alexander Isak for Newcastle. That's a shame for them. What a great change that could be. Wilson for Isak in games and vice versa. But I do still see them winning this game. I see them having plenty of shots as well. Look at over 15, maybe over 20 shots for Newcastle in this game. The reason being, Everton play so deep defensively, teams take shots from outside the area. They're a bit like Tottenham in that regard. They encourage you to shoot from 18 yards, from 20 yards, from 25 yards, because they have a belief that Jordan Pickford will save it. And to be fair, they are often right in that assertion. Jordan Pickford is fit and he looks good, and he's a player who will make many saves. So I don't see Everton scoring in this game. The best they can hope for is a goalless draw. If you want to go for the draw, you want to go for the goalless draw itself is just 4-1. Put it with the under 0.5, that's around 12. So I think that's quite a nice looking bet if you want to look for any result for Everton. Draw and 0-0. Draw and no goals. But I would still tip for Newcastle here, and I'd look for Newcastle to score more than likely in the second half rather than first.
Newcastle to win 2-0, for instance, 2.8, clean sheet for Newcastle, 2.35. In case there is a goalless draw, as you are mentioning it, you will win your bet. And also on Wednesday, we have Man United Tottenham. Very interesting game. Tottenham third, same points as Man City. Man United fifth, but they are leaving us not a great emotion, I would say, Man United, after the defeat in the derby. They only beat Everton, and those two games in the Europa League against Omonia Nicosia, not in a great fashion, we can say. And this is a massive test for Man United and also for Spurs, if they are going to be there fighting with Arsenal and perhaps Man City to challenge for the title, or even to try, until February.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tottenham, if they're going to be challengers, and I think they're challengers, I wouldn't discount Tottenham or Arsenal from the title race, or anyone in the top 5 or 6 at the moment, because there's a long way to go. We shouldn't discount anyone right now. And look at City, they lost the weekend. They've had a couple of draws away from home. Teams can go on winning runs. So at the moment, there are teams in it, though City are favourites and Tottenham are in it, but they've got to win games like this. They have to win games like this. Their only disappointment the entire season was the game against Arsenal, where they played poorly. Apart from that, 7 victories in 10 is very impressive. On paper, they look good. I'll start with Tottenham because I watched their game the weekend, and they're a desperate watch at times. They're so risk averse. They are desperate for you to have the ball, utterly desperate. And this game plays perfectly into their hands because Old Trafford expects. Old Trafford will expect Man United to take the initiative. Old Trafford will expect Anthony, who's been terrific, to run at the Tottenham defence. They'll expect the midfield to get forward. It's a game where Casemiro, we need Real Madrid Casemiro to have an exceptional game here for Man United to win. And I think they'll target him. I think they'll try and isolate him in central midfield with 2 or 3 runners around him. And what's interesting about Tottenham is that when they tried 3 up front at the weekend, it didn't quite work. The kind of 3-4-3 they've been doing. They bring Bissouma into midfield and go back to a 3-5-2 with Son and Kane up front. They look a lot better. With Richarlison injured, with 𝐿𝐭𝐿𝐴 probably still out, Bissouma comes into this game. I think Spurs will dominate possession. I think Spurs have got a great chance of going to win this game. It's whether Man United can score the first goal. If they score the first goal, it's a totally different ball game. In this game, first goal wins. Whoever scores that first goal. If it's Tottenham Hotspur, they shut that game down Antonio Conte style. Essentially a Capello team from 1993. They keep all their defenders in their own box. They clear it away. They're not bothered about going forward. They might nick a second on the break. If Man United score that first goal, Tottenham have got to come out. They desperately don't want to come out, and that may lead to a second Manchester United goal. So I would pick here Tottenham win. I would say Tottenham will win without conceding. But if Man United score the first goal, I think they go on to win it. But I don't see how they are going to get it against this low block, defend first, risk-averse Antonio Conte team. I don't think it's going to be a thriller. I'd expect this to be under 2.5 goals in the game. I expect one of these two teams to win to 0. And at the moment, as we speak, I would pip for Conte and Tottenham.
All right, under 2.5 goals, 2.22. If you go for Tottenham to win, 3.15, because Man United, they are the favorites. I would put, to be honest, the odds more balanced between these two teams. But the bookies, as always, or almost always, they are giving Man United as big favorites for this game. 2 more games. On Thursday, Fulham, Aston Villa. Mitrovic grabbed another goal and saved a point for Fulham. Was from the penalty spot, but still another goal from the Serbian. 1 victory in the last 5 for Fulham, always competing. Whereas Aston Villa, another defeat. This time, at least, they had some chances. Only 2 victories, only 7 goals scored. And the bookies here see it very balanced. And also, surprisingly, Tom, Aston Villa, they are favorites for this game. Why?
Yeah, I don't see that. Don't see that at all. I think that Fulham, for me, will be going into this game as favourites. I think that Issa Diop coming in at centre-half was a good decision. I think Tosin has struggled this season, so he looks better alongside Tim Ream at centre-half. I think that they looked a little bit tired. Fulham, at the game at the weekend, they can't make a great deal of changes to that first team. And so not having a fully fit central midfield, a fully fit Mitrovic up front, that affected them at times. But look, they can score goals. You can stay in the Premier League if you score goals. And 16 goals scored after 10 games is a very impressive amount of goals scored, more than Everton, more than Palace, more than West Ham, more than Leeds, more than Villa by a huge margin, more than Wolves. They have goal threat, and his name is Alexander Mitrovic, and that makes a massive, massive difference. So I would look for Fulham to win this game, and I think them being the underdogs is a shocker at 2.75. I'd take that all day long. I put a 10 of my own money on Fulham to win this game, just on that real basic Fulham to win. Double it up with Mitrovic scores, and you could be in for a 3-1, 4-1 here, which is quite nice. In terms of Aston Villa, 1 win in 5, a couple of draws in there when they probably should have been beaten against Leeds and against Nottingham Forest. I thought they played well, actually, against Chelsea, really upped their game against Chelsea at Villa Park, but went on to lose. Don't see how the goals are going to come. Watkins looks poor. Ings looks poor. Coutinho got no business playing at Aston Villa at this moment in time. Buendia looks the more outstanding of the offensive, creative players, but you can't get them in the same team. You know, we go on and on, round and around with Aston Villa. The same questions every week. How do they play? How do they line up? What do they do? And Tyrone Mings, you can see why Steven Gerrard wanted to bomb him out. He's simply not good enough. So in this game, with the odds like this, I wouldn't go wild. I would just go Fulham to win with a sizable bet at 2.75, because that's going to come in, I think. I don't see Villa going to Fulham and winning on current form. With just 7 goals scored all season as well, I just don't see a scenario Villa win.
Good odds for Fulham to win. If you are more cautious, you have Asian Handicap 0 for around 2. So if there is a draw, you get your money back. But Tom is telling you to get these very good odds. And last game is Leicester City Leeds. None of them scored at the weekend. Leicester still only with 5 points, and Leeds also poor lately, 2 points in the last 6 games.
Yeah, I mean, they have been poor. Both these teams have been poor in recent times. Leicester have been poor for the majority of this season. 1 win in 5, 1 win all season. I think what was interesting is that in recent weeks, we've seen West Ham, we've seen Wolves, we've seen Everton, we've seen Villa. They're teams who don't expect to be in the bottom 5 or 6. So when they are, they become survival football teams. They become risk averse. They're not interested in entertainment anymore. And that happens when you get to this point now, the 10, 12 game mark. You start to realize where you're going to be. You realize what kind of season you're going to have. And I think Brendan Rodgers has now realized, now we've got to stay up. Now we're in trouble. And we saw that, I think, against Palace at the weekend. Very risk averse in a way they played. They're not sending the fullbacks forward. They're not sending lots of bodies in the box. They're asking Barnes or Vardy or Maddison to do something for them. And they didn't against Crystal Palace. And even worse news going into Leeds is that Maddison was booked for that terrible dive in the last minute against Palace. He is suspended for this game. Their best player this season is not available for Leicester in this game. As for Leeds, you're right to pick out their form. 3 defeats in 5, just 2 points in the last 5 games. Though I will say they should have got something against Arsenal at the weekend. I mean, that was one of those games where Arsenal would have come out of it and been like, how did we win that? And some will say maybe that's what happens when you're about to win the league. I don't know. But, you know, Bamford, I think the first goal should have stood. He also could have scored that penalty. And I think you should always score penalties. And I also think it was a penalty at the end as well in that end of game controversy. So they played well, Leeds. They worked hard, Leeds. But this game, I think it's going to be very similar to the Crystal Palace game. Leicester are going to be risk averse. Leeds at the moment don't really have a goal scorer. I think Leeds are going to actually dominate possession in the first half. Leicester in the second will grow stronger, but I think not many chances, not many shots, certainly not many goals. Go the under 1.5 in this game. I think it screams draw at 3.6. It screams 0-0 draw again at 3.6, a result that will please neither manager. If Maddison was playing, the outstanding player of both clubs, I would have picked for Leicester. Without him, I don't see where the final ball to the striker is going to come.
Okay, then a draw. We love to bet on draws. There is always a good money. If you go under 2.5 goals, odds are 2.2. So, Tom, we don't have Man City to play in this midweek, so we cannot pick them to win in the safe bet. Which one it is then?
The safe bet for this week, because I can't do Man City because they're not playing until the weekend because the Arsenal game was called off. It's going to be Liverpool. It has to be Liverpool because Liverpool's victory over West Ham feels inevitable following the weekend. I think it'll be tight and taut, but West Ham have won once at Anfield since 1963. That was back in 2016, and they just find a way to beat West Ham. So, safe bet is Liverpool over the Hammers.
All right, and your ACCA?
The ACCA is a bit convoluted this week, but it's getting annoying now because I keep doing trebles to win and 2 of the 3 keep coming in. So I'm going fancy. I'm going to go Palace Wolves, that game to be under 2.5 goals in that game. The same story with Man United against Tottenham Hotspur, under 2.5 goals in the game. And I'm going to add that with the score being level at half-time between Liverpool and West Ham United. So it's a bit complicated, but it'll bring you in some nice money.
Indeed, 10.77. Now we have a new payslip, Tom, in Oddspedia, so you can pick your games and build your ACCA, and you will see also the best bookie to place your ACCA on Oddspedia. Another feature more for you, Tom, and for everyone. Thanks. We will see Man City in the weekend. We are back again this week, Tom. Thank you, and see you soon.